Mariners, shipmates, G Captain readers, my fellow Americans, maritime industry participants around the world. I have some important news to share. Too much important news to share. Right now, G Captain is working on stories about the 2 million barrel VLCC New Diamond. It's on fire right now and drifting. The 150,000 Mauritians protesting the Wakashio bunker spill. A cable layer that is right now on flames and sinking. The Wayman L. Boyd dredge explosion in Corpus Christi. The delayed salvage of the Golden Ray. The Stellar Banner grounding investigation. The Hogue Jimen explosion in Jacksonville. The Atlantis and Flores Spirit collision in Canada. Multiple hurricanes bearing down on the U.S. Gulf of Mexico right now. China challenging freedom of navigation as the Navy is weakened by COVID-19. A total collapse of the global cruise ship industry. Mass layoffs offshore and at big maritime companies like ABS. Multiple U.S. shipping companies near collapse right now. The Bonard Richam fire, the response, and the Navy's refusing to call the harbor tugs for help when the tugs were requesting to assist. Investigative pieces we're working on right now, like why the USS Zumwalt costs $8 billion and does not work. Why the Bonard Richam and this $8 billion Zumwalt are in San Diego Harbor, which is not protected by one single fireboat. Questions about things that make absolutely no sense to me outside the context of 2020. Like the U.S. Fitzgerald NTSB report finally being released this week, 3 long years after the incident. Why the Navy is continuing its gangway up order after a slew of suicides, the abysmal state of MARAD and the Sea Lift fleets. Fires are aboard the United States' only 2 icebreakers, a mass explosion in Beirut, sexual assault allegations, and numerous maritime academies, diversity and inclusion initiatives that are sputtering in the wake of BLM. Hundreds of thousands of mariners stuck at sea, and they IMO expert who's on the beaches telling people of Mauritius that as he rubs his hands in oil that carcinogens are, quote, nature's skin cream, unquote. Those are stories we are working on right now. And that is only the headlines. And that does not include the stories that I can't talk about or haven't talked about it. I can't give you details about the U.S. Navy's move to defund a certain 3-letter organization that's already in major distress. Or the day job I've taken to pay my kids' tuition because the public schools aren't opening fully, or the GCAM employee with life-threatening medical problems at home right now, or the GCAM writer who's reliving the rape of his daughter, or my house and boat back in California that's under a thick layer of ash, or my mother-in-law who just died of COVID, or any of my recent calls with the people at the highest level of U.S. government, the highest level of banking, the highest level of the maritime industry, who are all frustrated and confused. I haven't told these personal stories because I know you are facing similar personal stories right now. But the list goes on and on and on. We are at a major crossroads right now. But even among all of that was still in my mind yesterday, I did not feel the need to produce this video. The straw that broke the camel's back was a message that I received from a friend today about a death aboard a Pacific drilling rig in the Gulf of Mexico. Death that happened during riser operations. For the first time in the 15 years that I have been CEO of G-Captain, I told someone this morning that a single life does not matter, that G-Captain cannot possibly investigate that single death. We just don't have time. And I cried when I said it, and I cried the 2 times I filmed this video already today. And hopefully I'm out of tears and can get through this. These are all major stories. Hundreds of thousands of mariners stuck at sea, not able to see their families, and hundreds of thousands and more who can't afford to put dinner on the table with their families because they're out of work right now, as their reliefs are out on ships. But what stuck most in my mind is the one man in our industry who has fought harder than the rest. What stuck in my mind was a conversation I had with Captain Robert Cook, president of the Organization of Black Maritime College Graduates, a man who has been fighting for the advancement of his members for 27 years. 27 years. 27 years, and countless bright, talented OBGM cadets have graduated, entered our industry, and have risen to the ranks of captain, chief engineer, and pilot. Not bad. I'm a captain myself. I'm proud to call myself Captain John Conrad. I'm proud of that title and the achievement it represents. But as I go to high-level meetings and look around the boardroom, as I have calls, as I have meetings in smoke-filled rooms in this industry, I have seen that his job is not finished. I also have daily conversations with Ali Sedino of Women Offshore, and she works harder than anyone I know and has so much more work to do for women in our industry. In 1974, WISTA was formed, and that same year, Kathy Metcalf, who first walked down the passageways of Kings Point, among the first women to attend any service academy. But 46 years have passed, and there's so much more to do. And right now, there's a forest fire burning across social media that we haven't been able to report because we cannot see the true facts behind it. Sexual assault accusations that are mind-opening and go to the core of why I started G-Captain 15 years ago with my wife, Cindy Conrad, who was a woman mariner, a second mate, who served her country in the Second Gulf War aboard a container ship and has seen firsthand her classmates be harassed and knows women who have been violently raped And now there's this eccentric figure going out telling these stories, collecting thousands upon thousands of social media cheers and jeers. The Coast Guard conducting not very public investigations that have been started in stopping investigations at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy and many of our state academies. Letters from the president of Maine Maritime Academy. This is spreading and rocking behind the scenes, and we can't report on it because I don't know what's true and I don't know what's false. And the man behind some of this, some people see as crazy. I don't know. Is he crazy? I cannot tell. I know that he is a graduate of the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. I know he holds a law degree, and I know of his 5-year campaign he has been homeless. But there's so much craziness behind this issue. There's so many women hurting who don't want to come out. There's so many minorities who've been excluded. And I don't want to focus on that alone. I just want to focus on what it has led me to. Reminders of my conversations with Captain Cook and Ali Sedino led me recently to drive to the home of Susan B. Anthony in Adams, Massachusetts. And as I drove to her house, knowing it would be closed with COVID, I pulled into her driveway and turned off the car and stared at her house. I didn't have answers. I had no answers for our industry, an industry that's been torn apart. This isn't a women's rights or harassment issue. It isn't a BLM issue. It isn't left or right. Its ships are sinking. Oil is spilling. Mariners are stuck offshore. It's everything. Everything is happening right now. But I thought maybe I could get some wisdom from Susan B. Anthony, but I got none, and I drove south from North Adams, and I couldn't get it off my mind, and I pulled into my own driveway, and to Great Barrington, Massachusetts, and I walked a few blocks down from my house to the house of W.E.B. Du Bois. And it became clear to me that this man was a writer, so I read his books. And what came clear to me is W.E.B. Du Bois did not want to destroy the nation. He did not want to destroy an industry, but he wanted to investigate the wrongs that we have faced. And this has led me to a personal journey. Me, myself, I was born in an inferno. I don't talk about my own story very much, but I was born in one of the worst infernos of history. I was born into the Bronx of the late 70s and early 80s, which was on fire because it had been divided by a man named Robert Moses, who built the Cross Bronx Expressway through the neighborhoods of the Bronx and racked up such a debt that the city could not pay its bills. Could not help with the welfare programs, and my dad was a fireman, and he went to an average of 3 fires when he was with Rescue 3 a day. 3 major fires a day. The Bronx was burning. Howard Cosell in the World Series told everyone, Yankee Stadium, the Bronx is burning. That's what I grew up with. I grew up sitting in that fire truck, watching people jump from buildings, watching kids my age running out. It's not a BLM issue. It's not a women's rights issue. It's an issue of humanity. And we are failing, particularly in the U.S. Merchant Marine. And then it led me from Caro's book, The Power Broker, about Robert Moses, which opened my eyes to the great things he did. You understand, people say it's hard to build a road, a highway today, but it was harder in Robert Moses' time, when you had the Tammany Hall politicians and you did not have the transparency of today. He built the bridges in New York City, all of the highways, the parkways, the greatest park, before continuing contributing to the collapse and the burn. How did he get all of this done? How did he rebuild the great transportation and infrastructure in New York City, which we desperately need now to rebuild the U.S. Merchant Marine, the U.S. shipping fleet? How did he accomplish it? And that led me to Caro's second book, a book that he's been working on his entire life since ending the Robert Moses one, the story of Robert B. Johnson. And I got to admit, I was troubled by this. Because when I emerged from the Bronx, my dad escaped the Bronx and he moved the family to a very liberal neighborhood with very good schools. I was one of the sole Republicans in my school. And I had one goal in my life. It was to attend the U.S. Naval Academy. I got 8 varsity letters in high school. Mostly in track, and I hated to run, but I did it because I wanted to serve this nation. I wanted to participate in America. And when I got to the Naval Academy, I got a phone call that my dad was terminally ill with Agent Orange. Agent Orange that was approved by President Johnson. Killed my father. Here's my father who spent his whole life protecting the minorities and the weak and the poor in New York City. And then he dies of a man who was a Democrat, and I was a Republican at the time, who signed the Agent Orange and completely messed up that war in Vietnam. Killed so many people. But I read it with an open mind because I had no other ideas right now. And I realized that this nation has been fighting civil rights from its birth. We fought a war, the Civil War. It was the deadliest of Americans, and we still could not give rights to our black brothers and sisters. After Civil War, we could not accomplish civil rights. Think about that. And it got worse and worse over the years, till the Southern Caucus in the 50s had a stranglehold over this. And then I read in Caro's book about Johnson and how he was a Southern senator and really supported the South and fought civil rights legislation. And then another man who's been kind of lost to history, Senator Herbert Humphrey of Minnesota. He struggled. This is the chapter I read yesterday. He struggled. The Democratic National Convention. He was a mayor. He was not a senator. He had no right to speak. And for days prior to the convention, he's trying to convince them to get together. The Democratic, the liberal, the conservative, to help people. He's trying to mend the party that's about to be ripped apart. And he did not want to give a speech. He did not want to step up. He did not want to do this. But the day of the convention, he came up and gave one of the greatest speeches in American history. And he changed the mind of Johnson. He changed the mind of Lyndon Johnson, and together they worked on this civil rights legislation, which is not perfect. It's still failing today. There's still black men and women in our jails in America. But it worked, and for a short period, Johnson and Kennedy and Humphrey and Russell of Georgia worked together to pass some amazing legislation. So, I'm going to try not to cry. Because we have an opportunity, folks. And I'm not trying to undercut Herbert Humphrey, but I've taken his speech. And I apologize to Captain Cook and the Organization of Black Mariners. This is not a black thing, but you have an important piece of this puzzle. I want you front and center at this table. I want the women. I want the minorities. I want everyone to come together. But as I'm reading the speech, it's so clear that it relates directly to our problems in the U.S. Merchant Marine that I had to take it, rewrite a few words, and give it to you today. I felt compelled. Like Herbert Humphrey, I do not want to be here. I do not want to give this speech. I do not think it's going to be good for my career. But I think it may help. So here's my speech. Commodore Busby, fellow sailors, fellow Americans, I realize that in speaking in behalf of the Minority Report on Mariner Rights, speaking for an investigation into what's going wrong, that I am dealing with a charged issue, with an issue which has been confused by emotionalism on all sides of the fence, including personal emotion. I realize that there are here today friends and colleagues of mine, many of them, who feel just as deeply and keenly as I do about this issue and who are yet in complete disagreement with me on some of these facts. My respect and admiration for these men and their women and their views was great when I came to this convention. It is now far greater because of the sincerity, the courtesy, and the forthrightness with which many of you have argued in our prolonged discussions since my post last week. Because of this great respect and because of my profound belief that we have a challenging task ahead to do here, because good conscience, decent morality demands it, I feel I must rise at this time to support a report, an investigation report, a report that spells out our situation in clear and truthful terms, a report that the people of this country can and will understand, and a report they will enthusiastically acclaim on the great issue of the U.S. Merchant Marine. Now, let me say this at the onset, that this proposal is made for no single region. This report will be made for no single class, for no single race or religious group in mind. All maritime regions, all of the industry segments, all political parties share in the precious heritage of American freedom and the rebuilding of the U.S. Merchant Marine. All the states and all the regions have seen at least some of the infringements on that freedom. All people get this. All people, white and black, all groups, all racial groups, all ship owners, all shipyards, all servicemen of all branch, all ordinary sailors, all able-bodied sailors, and all boatswains, all masters and chief engineers, all tugboat, ferry boat, and launch drivers, all commercial fishermen, all drillers, roughnecks, and all roustabouts, and all land-loving citizens who drive on highways, choking on exhaust fumes and choked by traffic, have been the victim at times in this nation of a weak merchant marine. Let me say, vicious discrimination against the U.S. Merchant Marine and segregation of our individual industry segments has led to this weakness. Make no mistake, these problems are not sequestered to the borders of America's economic exclusion zone. And now I depart from Herbert Humphrey and speak my own words. This is a global problem, a problem created by the siloization of industry segments. Siloization, that is a critical word. That is the root of the evil that faces us. There's a malignant tumor growing in our hearts. The most dangerous idea ever created by man can be boiled down to 3 words: divide and conquer. Divide and conquer is a critical term. It is a political and sociological term. It is the gaining and maintaining of power by breaking up large concentrations of power into pieces that individually have less power than the one implementing the strategy. But it is more than a term, it is an idea. An idea that was created by man and that can be disassembled by men and women. It is an old term that dates back 500 years. It was used by Julius Caesar, Napoleon, Louis XI, the British Empire, the Dutch Empire, and most empires. It was used by the Romans to fraction the Jewish nations and by Hitler to murder them. And it has been used by Americans too. But this is not a history lesson. I am not interested in laying blame or focusing on the past. What I am interested in are the facts, and the fact is that an insidious compilation of events has led to the division of the American merchant marine interests and the destruction of U.S. flag shipping. You never see tanker captains at cruise ship events. You don't see cruise ship owners at U.S. Navy events. You don't see naval officers at marine money events. You don't see hedge fund managers at tugboat events, etc., etc., etc. The industry has been siloized. It has been divided into parts, into regions, and has been conquered. And this is not a domestic issue. Maritime interests have been fragmented and siloized throughout the world, and sailors from each country have little opportunity to communicate beyond passing arrangements on the VHF radio. So I call on the global community to unite under the banner of truth. But action needs to start here in America. Because a decade ago, Americans were 12th in marine finance. Today, thanks to hedge funds, derivatives, and fintech, we are number one. A decade ago, we had no media voice. Today, we have the most read maritime publications in the entire world. A decade ago, American technology companies were infants. Now they make up 25% of the global market cap. A decade ago, America, had no votes in the IMO. And while the United States is still weak, it is still true. The top 3 flags, Panama, Liberia, Marshall Islands, are all located and managed in North America. A decade ago, our nation's top concern was terrorists. Today, the Pentagon's top worry is supplying our troops in peer-to-peer conflicts across vast oceans after large naval battles. A decade ago, spam was just a minor annoyance. Today, America leads in cybersecurity both on land and at sea. America has the money. America has the voice. We have the technology. We have the votes. We have the support to do great things. We just need to come together to do them. And this is the critical time because it is getting precipitously worse. All these incidents are happening right now. There is one more thing that we need. In my paper last week, which caught the attention of the very top leaders in government, top leaders in shipping and finance, international leaders too, I said that what we need as an industry most is a leader. I called for a leader who can say Mayday and acknowledge the failures of our industry. In dozens of conversations last week, however, I realized that I am wrong. We have great leaders who realize the pain of our current situation. That we are leaders who realize we are very close to collapse. We have Admiral Busby, who got us all new training ships and has done amazing things to convince the Navy as to the importance of the U.S. Merchant Marine, but special interests have slowed him down. We have Secretary Chow, a female minority of the highest intellect and deepest heart from a ship-owning family, an American dream family of a father who came here poor and built this amazing shipping company through the love of his family and this nation. But she gets villainized by the press for conflicts of interest when she comes out in support of shipping. We have Peter Navarro, Larry Kudlow, and less recognized names in the White House who I'm not going to mention but are equally important, working on maritime solutions today. We have other advocates in Washington who deeply understand shipping, including Wilbur Ross, General Lyons, Admiral Schultz, Rear Admiral Wetlaufer, Admiral Thad Allen, the great Thad Allen, Ryan Moody at ABS. We have academic leaders like Jack Bono, Mike Altufis, and astronaut Folsom at Texas A&M. And we have leaders on the left too, like Dr. Sylvia Earle and astronaut Catherine Sullivan of NOAA, and Nishan, I'm going to get your name wrong, Deganarain of Forbes, who has been fighting for the Green Highway and green initiatives through the UN, through international cooperation, and has been doing a series of articles on Forbes exposing the systemic problems in this industry. We have green ocean leaders like Bob Kunkel of Harbor Harvest, Jim Lawrence of Marine Money, Antoon Van Kali of Blue Line Logistics, Beth Ann Rooney of the New York Port Authority and Jersey Port Authority, Mike Stamanis of Brooklyn Ports and New York Unions, Captain Eric Johansson and Dr. Samuel Hallam, all working on green short sea shipping initiatives in our backyard, along with NYSERDA and New York City EDC and New York governor and mayors, a coalition of support. But they are failing too. We have technology leaders, ship owners. We have technology leaders who are ship owners, like Bezos and Musk and Eric Schmidt of Google, to regional leaders who are coalescing shipping technology, like Mark Wang of General Electric, Alyssa Peterson of McKinsey, to startup leaders like the MIT startup Black Sail, led by the CEO Mohammed Saad Sadiq. We have smart, talented leaders of U.S. shipping companies, maritime unions, port authorities, banks, hedge funds, and technology clusters, but they're all living siloized life. We need to unlock these leadership skills and bring them together. We have no shortage of great leaders. And I apologize for saying that we do. We have the leaders we need to win. We don't need another leader. What we do need is a statesman, a uniting force that can deliver America a plan not created by him, not fuddled with by special interests, but created by connecting these silos. A statesman who can work domestically to bring these America's best, brightest leaders together on a coordinated response, and who can join to lead the world shipping community globally. A statesman who forges bonds. A statesman who forges bonds on the anvil of truth. I cannot begin to list the number of wrong assumptions the average American and the people I've talked to, smart, intelligent people, have. The wrong assumptions they have, the wrong assumptions industry insiders think are true. Ask yourself these questions. Why are marine highway initiatives failing in this country? Why are American ships so costly to produce? Why were marine hospitals closed and mariners stripped of benefits? Why is MARAD so ineffective? Why are naval ships running into each other and catching fire? Why is U.S. flag shipping at its lowest levels and failing? These are the questions I have pondered over the last 15 years of G-Captain, and there are the questions I have asked people at all levels of our industry. And let me tell you, the answers that I have received back are wrong. I guarantee if you ask yourself these questions, I guarantee you will get at least one of the answers wrong. And many of you are getting the majority of the answers wrong. Because you're listening to left and right and bicameral. We have a media today that's ripping the nation apart. The divide and conquer is real, and ripping the nation apart at our seams. And a lot of that fake news and policy is fractional. And a lot of it is based on assumptions, and assumptions that are dearly wrong. So what we need to do is investigate. We need a statesman who can call for an investigation of ourselves. Going back to Robert Moses, that's what he did first. He investigated the problems on long walks through the areas he wanted to renovate, bringing together the smartest minds to strategize the future, put it up on a billboard and strategize how we're going to move forward. And Johnson, who was stealing from Truman the War Preparedness Report. Truman investigated war problems in World War II. Johnson investigated our preparedness for the Korean War. But here's the key, guys. These were bipartisan initiatives. In Truman's Johnson investigation, he got 100% buy-in from left and from right. Why? Because he was not looking to put capitalists in jail and factory owners, even when they were taking money and being inefficient. And he was not looking to promote the conservative agenda. He was looking at using this report and the investigation of shipyards and factories and ammunition things to find the real problems in America and the real solutions, strategize to fix those problems. And he was willing to delete from these report the things that would divide us, the political things. Some people said that Johnson was ineffective, that he glossed over some of the real problems. And some he did. But it wasn't about punishment, it was about bringing together. So I call for an investigation based on the Truman Commission. It's not going after people, but looking at the problems today, not for punishment in the past, so that we have the truth and information to build in our future. And Secretary Cho, I know you have a deep heart. I ask that you talk to your husband, Mitch McConnell, in the Senate, that the Senate open a investigation into the Merchant Marine, which is the critical component into the potential war, peer-to-peer wars in the future. That we investigate these problems, that we investigate the Senate's response, the Navy's response, DOT's response, MARAD's response, ship owners' response. We investigate our shipyards. We investigate G Captain. I call an investigation of ourselves, not to punish, but that we can get the real information, the truth, and hammer out solutions. And I ask for a statesman to do that. And if Senator McConnell cannot do that, I understand the troubles. People blame the Senate. The Senate was not designed to push bills out fast. They were designed to deliberate over time. So I understand it may be too difficult for Senator McConnell. If it is, Joe, I ask you to have Admiral Busby get with investigators, good investigators, to investigate through MARAD, the U.S. Merchant Marine, the problems that we are having across the spectrum. And Admiral Busby, if we cannot do this throughout MARAD, I ask you to step down from MARAD and get together with the nation's best lawyers, the maritime lawyers, and the maritime academic law institutions, that you donate lawyers pro bono to work on the investigation of our problems. And that the hedge fund managers in the financial community and all the people Jim Lawrence has brought together with Marine Money, you help to fund that investigation. Not to punish, but to build. And that we find a statesman who can take those and make sure we align all of the things in the silo together to get these problems fixed. So investigate and find and identify that statesman. I am not that statesman. I have been born in the inferno. I had to give up my dream at the Naval Academy because my dad had cancer in Agent Orange. The Asian tsunami swept under my ship in 2004 and took out family and my crew member. I was on the last flight in Katrina, taking my plane up through the sky. We buffeted and shaked and flipped and rolled so bad that they closed the New Orleans airport behind me. And 2 weeks later, I returned to New Orleans to go out to my ship to relieve my crewmates who were suffering during that tragedy. And most importantly, my dad died in 1999, and I like to think he did it to open the gates of heaven for his fellow firefighters. His entire fire truck Rescue 3 in the Bronx, the entire crew on duty that night lost their lives. And I hope that my father was able to open those gates of heaven to those brave men who fought for our freedoms. Who went knowing that way he would die. My dad, the lieutenant. of a ladder company who had been in the Vietnam War. And during shift change, he jumped on the fire truck, and the off-coming firemen, the men who were off-shift, jumped on and he kicked them off and he yelled at them. And they begged him to respond to 9/11. And he said, "Men, people are going to die today. Get off this rig." For the men like that, I hope he opened the gates for them. But right now, men and women are dying. We just had an explosion in Corpus in our backyard. Numerous ships on fire right now, sinking right now, oil spilling in Mauritius, hundreds of thousands of mariners at sea, not seeing their family all year, and hundreds of thousands and more who can't afford food on their tables. Merchant Marine is dying, but we have the strength, we have the resources. And if all we can do is open that door to heaven for those people to come in next year who are going to die if we don't fix this, that will be something. And I apologize for being emotional on September 11th. But remember the words of my dad. My dad said when I had to leave the Naval Academy to help my little 12-year-old brother who didn't understand why his dad was dying. And my other brother and my sister and I had to be the surrogate dad as my mom worked 2 jobs and got a master's in the projects of the Bronx. And as I got the merits at SUNY Maritime because I had to go home and I had to provide for them. And the lost crew and the fires I've been on in ships and writing the book of the Deepwater Horizon, I want it to be for something. But my dad, I remember him looking at me in the hospital and he said, "John, I know this is hard, but what doesn't kill you in life makes you stronger." So in my final words, I want to say to my G Captain readers, I feel like I am strong enough. If I get any stronger, I'm going to turn green. I am not the statesman. Herbert Humphrey did not become president. LBJ did. So we need to identify that statesman, but I will be the hammer. We need the statesman to wield the hammer on the anvil of truth. If we don't get the truth, if we don't get past assumptions, if we don't investigate and find out the real reasons for these problems, we will never get past them. And then if we don't have a statement to unite the nation around these solutions, we are going to be in trouble. I can be that hammer. I can piss people off. I was a chief mate for 8 years. I have those skills. I can be the bad guy if I need to. I don't want to be on here, but I can. But we need the best brains to get together and identify that statesman. So in search of that statement and calling on Mitch McConnell and Chow and Busby and our other leaders, I asked the Mariner, my shipmates, my brothers and sisters at sea, I call on you to get the message out. I call on you right now to grab your VHF radio and make the following call. Pon pon, pon pon, pon pon. This is Captain John Conrad. I am the Merchant Marine. I want you to put your name in there and I want to pass it to your shipmate. I want you to pass it to the OS, the cook, the chief engineer. I want them each to say that over the VHF radio. I'd like to call Mayday, but we can't do that, so Pon Pon will have to suffice. And after you pass it to your entire crew, I want you to blast X-ray, 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 and Morse code over the whistle. X-ray, X-ray, X-ray is Morse code for pon pon, pon pon, pon pon, blowing on your whistle. X-ray is long, short, short, long. So long, short, short, long, long, short, short, long, long, short, short, long. Let your shipmates hear. Let the harbor hear. Let VTS hear. Let the Coast Guard hear. Let the nation hear our call. Where mariners are dying now, our ships are sinking now. We need to investigate, coalesce, and build. Thank you.